On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks should expect this player to take a leap next season, and maybe some other ones. We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't even help.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Take us with you. Leave a 5-star review. You can also like the video on YouTube and comment anything below. Let me know who you think is going to take a leap for the Dallas Mavericks next season. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And joining me, the eternal optimist from Valley Sports, the great Dana Larson. What you got for me?
Oh, except I'm not exactly optimistic after having been sick in the summer. Is there anything worse, Nick, than being sick in the summer? It doesn't make sense.
No.
And I'm really, really tired of it. I've been holed up in this room and had to stay away from everybody. And I just feel like I've got fog brain. So anything I say in this podcast, I'm just telling you, it cannot be used against me. I am medicated heavily and I'm just not of my right mind.
I don't know if you know this, but there is a Twitter account called Out of Context Locked On Mavs. So out of context Locked On Mavs. Get your clipping fingers ready. Dana Larson warned you.
Yes, I did. I'm gonna give you so much gold over the next 28 minutes, whatever.
Oh man, yeah.
But it's good to be back, and I didn't want to miss you. I missed the Raccoon Squad, and I miss you, Nick. It's been too long, so I wasn't calling in sick. There was no way. Look at
that.
Yes.
Dana Larson, a fighter, continues on through. Shows up to work.
That's right.
Brings her lunch pail the same way as everybody else. Fights through it, uphill both ways.
That's right.
We've got a mailbag today. I want to talk about a couple of things that you guys asked. I asked questions on the subtext line, and you guys responded and gave me a bunch of really good questions. One of them about the closing lineup. Who should be in the Mavericks closing lineup? We'll talk about that. Also want to ask about Spencer Dinwiddie's role. Is he the new Trey Burke? That was the way the question was worded.
I giggled. I loved it.
We'll get into that. And then I also want to ask Dana if it's finals or bust this year, like we talked about with Reggie the other day. But let's start here, Dana Larson. The Mavs should expect one player to take a leap next season. And I guess the leap, it depends on what you think a leap is or how you define a leap. But to me, I think Dereck Lively, the Mavs should expect him to take a leap because I think we did see him take a leap from the beginning of his rookie year to him playing in the NBA dang finals. Like, to go all the way from not starting or getting dunked on by Rudy Gobert in the preseason to all the way to the NBA finals, to me, that's already been a leap. So if you're trying to look at all right, where was Dereck Lively for the whole season? Where should he be at the start of the season? That's already a leap if he's just starting at the place where he ended last season. But I also think he can get better. And so I think the Mavericks should expect him. But is that one too obvious? Is it too obvious that he should be the one to take a leap?
Yeah, it might be, but it is the clear best answer, I think, for that, because I think that's where you're going to see, again, massive change from start to finish, I think, because of what we saw last year and because of what we know he is as a player now. So I think it really does make a lot of sense to say Dereck Lively. I mean, a rookie center, right, is like a baby deer in the NBA. You're just trying to get your legs under you, right? Like that was the expectations for Dereck Lively, right? And then he just blows them out of the water, and he's coming up with massive double-doubles in the NBA Finals. And you're just so excited about what he can bring. Now we realize that there's even, there's so much more untapped potential because everything he was doing last year was like a pleasant surprise. And you're just so happy. You're like, Dereck Lively, just keep doing what you're doing. Just stay in your lane. This is amazing. You're giving us everything we could have ever hoped for, right? We put the seatbelt on him, and he just did what we needed. Now it's like, get him out of the booster seat. He's a toddler now in the NBA. He's not a baby anymore. And so he is going to grow massively, right? Because there is so much more they're going to let him do. They're now not just, happy to get what he can bring. They now know there's so much more they can ask of him, and he's going to learn it, and he's going to embrace it. He's going to evolve offensively. He's going to be even more of that defensive anchor, probably the starter. So he's going to play more minutes. He's going to be asked, really to carry like a much more significant load. And I think year 1 to year 2, with expectations, I think is why he's just gonna, he's gonna explode this year.
Yeah, to take the car seat analogy maybe a step further. You know how you have a baby that the car seat has to be turned around. It can't be facing forward
That's
at
right.
first. That's and then you flip it around because now the baby can handle a little bit more and can hold their neck up and can see in front of them and all that kind of stuff. Dereck Lively's car seat has been flipped around. And I think now, like you just said, they're going to give him more responsibility. Or maybe he goes to the booster seat with like where the actual seat belt is used on the child, but it's still like keeping you up. The Mavericks are going to have to ask him to do more. And I think they have to almost expect the leap and hope that this leap happens, because I think with a 34-year-old Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, and Luka as your perimeter defense with PJ Washington and Lively, there's going to be a lot asked in that starting lineup if he's in it for him to do defensively. And I think that's turning the car seat around. And I think that now they expect things from him. And it's not like, all right, whatever you bring is gravy and we hope that you're good and all that. Now it's, okay, there are expectations on you.
Yeah, and when you turn that car seat around, you know what you get? A beautiful view in front of you finally, right? You get to see everything that lies ahead. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about a guy that has goals of being an all-star. We're talking about a guy that, has goals of, I don't know, can we say Team USA now? People are already wanting to float that out there. Let's consider that a few years down the road. So if those are now where we are wanting to, those are true things that might happen in this young man's career, this year is going to be the year in which I think we see a ton of progress in terms of what he looks like as more of a complete player. We're going to start to see what that could be for him.
How many double-doubles do you think he had in the regular season last year? Just off top. And if you're listening, you answer the question too. Give me an out loud answer at home.
Oh boy, for the whole season. Oh, I'm going to feel so
He played 55 games.
I'll give 55 games.
Well,
did he have?
I'm setting you up.
You are. I know you are. I
can
tell, because it's probably not going to be as many as we think. Is it lower?
Now you're overthinking it.
I'm overthinking it. I don't know. Did he have 15?
He had 8.
8. Okay. See,
he did not have. So I think. So I want to put this all into perspective by using this number. There's a lot ahead of him that he can still do, right? We didn't see a Dereck Lively that was like a double-double every single night. That was, every single game playing 30 minutes. He had 17 games, or he had 18 games last season where he played under 20 minutes last season. 18 games out of his 55. Like, it was not that they gave him all this and everything was put on him and he had a ton of double-doubles and all that. Like, there's a ceiling for him to still reach. So even though he was very good in his role last season, there's a ways to go. So there's an opportunity and there's a ceiling for him to hit. And a lot of room there for him to still grow is kind of my point in all that. So yeah, Lively, definitely one that we're expecting to take a leap. Any others that you start thinking about? To me, Quentin Grimes is one that I'm high on. He's 24. He's still young. And I think the leap from, he got knocked out of the Knicks starting lineup to then back into, a playoff rotation, I think could be considered a leap for him if he's able to show some things. But Grimes or anyone else you're looking at to take a leap?
I love the Grimes thought, and I may even say maybe he's going to be the Derrick Jones Jr. of this year, which is not necessarily the same player, but maybe the same story, where it's a guy you don't necessarily know how to slot him in just yet. You don't know how big or small his role might be just yet, but he might be that guy that is so motivated, like you're talking about, trying to really get back to where he was early on in his career, that he might be super impressive in training camp. He might be that guy that really grabs Jason Kidd's attention for some particular reason, and maybe somebody who just earns himself more and more minutes, and we end up talking about like Derrick Jones Jr. I think that's a good one. I also, would throw maybe PJ Washington Jr. in there, because I think even though he's a huge integral player already, I feel like we may see his points a game go up. That's what I think, that they want him to score more, right? Like, I'd love to see him be like a 15-point a game guy. I'd love to see, his 3-point percentage go up. And I think it will. I think a full year. And he's working on, a lot of stuff in the off season with those shooting mechanics. And I just feel like there's going to be a really a comfort level with him that we might see, like, a leap to sort of that high draft pick kind of, sort of reputation that he had early on that kind of got lost in Charlotte. And now he's really becoming more well-rounded player with the defensive stuff that he does as well. So I don't know. He's someone else I would be excited to see have like a significant leap.
Yeah, I mean, we saw flashes, really great flashes of him against OKC, where the Thunder fans still are like, if only PJ Washington hadn't turned into Ray Allen, then we would have won that series. I mean, maybe, but now we've seen those flashes from PJ Washington that maybe, and he's got that taste of the playoffs, that maybe he takes that leap forward. It's still possible. He's same age as Luka. I mean, they're both still young. So coming up though, let's talk about, is it finals or bust for the Dallas Mavericks? I don't think it is. Maybe Dana Larson does. We'll talk about that coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by one of my favorites. It's GameTime. I use GameTime all the time. It's a ticketing app that helps you to save money and also to go to places and go to things that you didn't think you were able to go to. If you see something that's sold out, check on GameTime, because sometimes they still have tickets available. And they have all kinds of cool features to help you make the ticket buying process easier. You can save on last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. The Dallas Wings are coming back. I've bought many a ticket on GameTime for a Dallas Wings game, and I do it. Let's say I'm in the passenger seat in the car, and I buy it on the way, because the last minute tickets, the price goes down. And so keep checking on GameTime. You can also do the all-in pricing, so you can toggle the all-in feature, and it shows exactly what you're going to pay at checkout right when you pick the ticket. And I love that about GameTime. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, WNBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, being an everydayer, listening every day. Appreciate you and every one of you for checking out the show. Go check out Locked On NBA yesterday, Thursday. Pat the Designer and I were on the show talking about, I don't know what we talked about because I'm recording this before I'm doing Locked On NBA, but we talked about something really cool in the NBA. So go check out Locked On NBA and make it your second listen today. All right, Dana, we talked about this with Reggie the other day, and I'm curious what you think about this. One of the questions we got on the mailbag was, we made it to the finals last year. So is it finals again this year or bust? Do you believe this season is finals or bust for the Dallas Mavericks?
I'm a regular listener, and somehow I missed that one. So I don't know what you guys said in that particular.
I just want your opinion.
So I'm coming in here without knowing what you guys said about that, but I'm going to say yes. Yes, it is finals or bust. And here is why. I believe that this is a team that is poised to be a championship contender now for multiple years. This is a team that is built to make deep, deep playoff runs. You have a perennial MVP who is just now creeping into his prime. I love that, obviously. That's where it all begins and ends. Not to mention the fact that you have a front office who is building, keeping the core together, and has only made you better this year. We've not seen that in past years in this organization. when the Mavs made deep playoff runs or won the title in 2011, we didn't get to see what would happen if they stayed together, right? So they have that now. So to me, that this is where that's what the goal has to be. And I remember after 2022, and that was a bit of a surprise run to the West Finals. Now, I remember interviewing Michael Finley before the season started, and he said, "Let's see how this team looks with a target on its back." Well, it did not handle it well that year, but they also didn't get to keep Jalen Brunson. They didn't keep things together. They didn't get to work towards building this team. That is what they have right now. This is, Luka is not carrying the load anymore. They have a more sustainable foundation and approach and process to this. So to me, why not? This is a team that should always fight for a championship, and that means you need to be in the finals.
Well said.
What say you?
You're like a professional at this, Dana. To me, making the finals is so difficult. To say the phrase finals or bust. So to me, bust is like, we've got to make changes. Got to make big changes, have to change something, and not just like a tweak around the edges. Like this past offseason, I think they made a tweak around the edges, bringing in Klay Thompson, getting Quentin Grimes, getting Najee Marshall, Spencer Dinwiddie. I think Western Conference Finals are bust. They got to win a couple rounds. They got to at least advance. They've got to make, there's a case that even if it's a really good second round series, I don't think it's complete bust, because bust to me is like, all right, we got to change one of the stars. We got to bring in another star. We got to do something really big and massive. And I don't think this team will need that. And so that's where I am with finals or bust.
Okay. I hear you. And that is fair. Absolutely. And the fact too, you cannot overlook what it takes to get to, the end of the Western Conference run.
Hard.
You cannot overlook Oklahoma City just got better. Minnesota's really, really good. Denver, say what you will about what they're doing. I am always going to be concerned with the Nuggets and with Jokic. So yes, it is hard. It is very hard. That is the whole point. And it won't be easy. Nobody ever said it would be, but I think that, that's what you want. So to me, I think that has to be your perspective. That has to be the bar that you set. And that's what you fight for year in and year out. And maybe bust doesn't mean blow up in my mind. It just means you didn't accomplish your goal. You failed. And if you fail and you're the second best team in the NBA, it doesn't always got to blow something up, right? Just continue to tweak around the edges. I just like that they're building a foundation that feels really good to Luka. And Luka will hopefully want to continue to be a part of it. And so to me, that feels really good. He's going to want to be here to fight for championships. That's what the greatest player should want to do. So bust, your definition and mine might be slightly different, and that's where we get
harsh
our answers here.
Yeah, my definition of bust is a little more harsh, I think. I was in a session with Adam Silver one time at Summer League. We were talking to a bunch of us that were trying to make it in the media or in the NBA. Yeah, I'll drop it.
Love it.
And one of the things he said that stood out to me was, I'm in a business where 29 of the 30 teams or organizations or businesses that I help oversee or whatever fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's exactly.
Wow, that is. It is, right. It is. And so you have to create different ways for teams to succeed. And so, there's monetary ways, like the Lakers will never fail because just the business wise, because of how much money they make, or things like that. They make the NBA Cup that they just announced the schedule for recently and all that. So you start to find other ways to make, these franchises succeed. And so if it's just the NBA Finals, to me, that is just such a high bar, which maybe the Mavs are ready for. But to me, it's such a high bar that it can't be bust if they don't make that, because of just how difficult it is. And I think that it also gives credit, like you said a little bit, gives credit to what they did last year and how hard it is and how we should celebrate how difficult that is, because it's a team should only be expected to make the finals if they are the best team in the NBA. I think the Celtics, it's finals or bust for them. Like if they don't make it, then they gotta make changes. They gotta do something because something didn't work. But they did last year and they won and all that.
And the last thing you want is for last year to be a fluke and to be able to say that in retrospect. We don't want to be talking about that next year. We don't want to say, well, that was just a 1-year thing where, it was a perfect storm and everything just fell in line for that run. You want to build something sustainable. You want to be a great franchise that is always in the mix for a long period of time, right? And so that, to me, is make that the goal.
Absolutely. All right, coming up, it's a close game. It's coming down to the wire. The Mavs are throwing out Luka, Kyrie, Dereck Lively. That means that one of Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, and Najee Marshall has to ride the bench. Who rides the bench? We'll tell you coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action. I've been pushing WNBA because they're coming back, baby. Wings made some moves on Wednesday, and Satu Sabally is going to be coming back into the fold, and so I'm excited to go check out some Wings games. They are now a 5.5-point underdog against the Sun. It moved a 1 point with the Satu Sabally move, so that's good because she was a all WNBA first team player last season. So go check out the Dallas Wings on FanDuel, all kinds of MLB stuff as well. With the Rangers, you can go put some money down on all kinds of stuff. They have daily specials, bonuses, all kinds of stuff all throughout the season. Go check out FanDuel, see what's available for you. They have NBA futures as well and all that. The sports net may not be exactly the same as they were when the Olympics were going, but there's still stuff all the time over at FanDuel. So go check it out, FanDuel.com. All right, Dana, we're answering your questions, Raccoon Squad, about the Dallas Mavericks this offseason. We talked about who's going to make a leap. We talked about, is it finals or bust this year? Now, closing lineup. And we need our best closing lineup out there. It's a close game, down to the wire. Let's just say the other team, it doesn't matter which players matchup-wise we throw out there. What's the best closing lineup for the Dallas Mavericks? Luka, Kyrie, and let's say Lively is in it. One of Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall rides the bench. Who do you think it is and why?
So it is tough, and this is a great problem to have. First of all, let's enjoy that for a moment, right? This is a talented, deep team, and I love that you have these sort of questions. To me, it feels pretty easy right now in this moment to say, I'm going to have Klay Thompson on the floor, and I'm going to have PJ Washington Jr. on the floor. So that means Najee Marshall is going to be on the bench in this moment. And here is why. Klay Thompson, you almost don't have to say anything else, right? I mean, he's got 4 rings in 158 playoff games, and he's hit 1 million game-winning, important clutch shots. And until he shows me that he should no longer be out there, I am going to have him out there as a guy I can look to hit a big shot.
The oldest player on the Dallas Mavericks being the most important perimeter or point of attack defender on the floor doesn't worry you?
I want offense in that moment. I want a guy who can hit a big shot because I'm going to ask PJ Washington Jr. to lock somebody down if I need that to happen. I'm going to look to veterans. Yes, I love that Najee Marshall is somebody who can defend a guard, a wing, a forward, any of those things that you need. And he is super versatile, but you know what? He has very little experience in clutch and closing lineups in his career. He played for a Pelicans team that had Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion in positions, Ingram, right? So those guys were going to be on the floor in those moments. In fact, I think he only had 14 total minutes in clutch last year and just 2 points. Okay, so it's one of those things that's tough. It's like, yeah, but he didn't get the opportunity, right? So maybe he's really good in those situations. Well, he's a young player that's played on some deep teams. I think that Jason Kidd is going to look to veterans. He looked to PJ Washington Jr. in those closing moments every time last season. He played, it was Luka, Kai, and PJ in all 11 clutch time playoff games last season. I think that those are the guys because I feel like, PJ can give you defense, but he's also really versatile offensively. And Najee Marshall's a little bit more limited in what he brings in those moments. So it's a tough one. I'm doing the mental gymnastics on why I come up with that answer. But in this moment, that's what I would say.
Ooh. You took me
Did I
there.
exhaust you?
You showed your work. We're back. Yeah, the point of Najee Marshall not having a lot of experience is the one right now that you have to lean on. And we're expecting Klay Thompson to come in and to play defense within this system in a way that works. And if you just need a couple of stops, I think Klay Thompson can still do that for you. The issue with Klay Thompson defensively is going to be the long term of the game or the long term of the season. Is can we ask him to do these things long term? If I'm Jason Kidd, can I ask Klay Thompson to guard the best guard every single night when PJ Washington is guarding the best wing? Like, can we ask him to do that every single night? And the answer may not be yes, but can he do it in the last 5 minutes of a game? I think so. And I think that the Mavs can lock up and figure it out and can go out there and defend with that lineup. He did only play 14 minutes of crunch time last season in the regular season for the Pelicans. And they went 6-8 in those games. And they were not a great clutch team, but yeah, that's interesting with Najee Marshall. Maybe he comes in and maybe he's one that takes a little bit of a leap going from a smaller role with the Pelicans to maybe a bigger role with the Mavs. But I think it does have to be Klay right now. PJ for obvious reasons, size-wise, because of what he brought in the playoffs. I think that he is one. But maybe it's a PJ versus Najee thing at a certain point, depending on what they need. I do worry about them not having the dirty work wings. That's going to be my thing. That if you don't have two of those guys out there that do what the Mavs need them to do, then I'm curious. But the shooting of Klay Thompson, like you said, you want the scoring, you want the shooting, you want the experience out there, and I think that will override all the other questions that we have right now.
It would be hard to imagine, Jason Kidd at this stage, right? Again, until you see something else that proves differently, how you would ever, make the call to have Klay Thompson on the bench in those moments. I think he's signed here to really sort of rejuvenate all of those aspects of his career, and they're going to look to him to do all of that. And the Mavs need him. They need him to do those things.
They do. Last one here. The question on the mailbag and the subtext was, does Dinwiddie come back if he's in the Trey Burke role? Is Exum the new Trey Burke? So I don't know where Trey Burke came from, but I think it does ask a good question. There's a question between the lines of this question. Is what role did Dinwiddie come back and accept? Do we think that Dinwiddie Dinwiddie expects a certain role coming in his decision to come back to the Mavericks instead of going back to the Lakers?
I mean, without even knowing what was said in those meetings and those conversations, I feel like all you need to do is know Spencer Dinwiddie a little to know he absolutely has expectations of what he's coming back. This is not a guy short on confidence or, I don't know if it's fair to say ego, but he is a guy that absolutely believes that he can play, he can still play. And I feel like, he looked at this team and said, you need more experience in that backup role there. And I'm your guy. And I do think that he expects to be much more than a Trey Burke for this Mavericks team.
Maybe a bubble Burke. The
A bubble Burke,
yes.
A 2020 Trey Burke, yes.
Oh my gosh, what a wild, what a wild time it was to be alive. They're playing games in front of no people, everybody in Florida, and Trey Burke was just going off. It was like so many guys had such random. But yeah, I do think that Spencer Dinwiddie does expect some kind of a role, and I've been under the impression that the backup guard minutes are. I think Grimes is a wing guard, so maybe throw him. I put him to the side a little bit. He's more of like in the Josh Green role than others. But Dinwiddie is on top of the Dinwiddie, Exum, Hardy. Those are like the three guards that are coming off the bench that I think Dinwiddie will have the most minutes of those guys and have the most consistent role by far. And I think I think that's right. I think he brings a different thing than either of those other guys do. He's bigger than both of those other guys, and I think that should put him ahead anyway. And he knows the system. He's been with these guys, and I think that he's played with everybody on this team, I think, pretty much. So
he's played with everybody. He's been around. I think people know what they're getting with Spencer Dinwiddie as well. That's another thing. You get a strong voice. And that can be something that is really good. If you're, Willie, I guess, accepting of of who he is and how he's coming at it. He's a guy you love to have on your team, not necessarily a guy that you love playing against. And that's not a bad thing. Getting a little more edge on this team is never bad. And I think a lot of these guys know each other very well at this point, and his stage in his career, he's a little more accepting of where he is as well. And I do think that could be a really good fit for them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what role Spencer Dinwiddie has. I'm curious. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube. Who do you expect to take a leap? What role do you expect Dinwiddie to have? Who's in the closing lineup? Any kind of questions like that. And subscribe to the subtext line if you want to do more mailbags like this. I'll answer more questions in that subtext, and then I'll do some extra stuff throughout the season, and I'm reporting all the news. We're doing the slow drip on the schedule. Like the schedule is just, we're slow dripping one game at a time. By the time you're listening to this, you'll know more. But I've enjoyed the one game at a time reporting of the schedule so far. So go subscribe to that. Go check out Dana Larson on Bally's and doing all that kind of stuff. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. We'll be back on Monday with more answering your questions. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.